What is the future of mobility? The challenges worldwide are enormous. Global warming, air pollution, a complete collapse of transportation systems. Why don't we reinvent mobility? More sustainable, climate-friendly, better connected, safer, more exciting. This is our promise. Rail 4.0 is the answer. The railway industry in Germany provides the mobility of the 21st century. All of this is made in Germany. As the global leader, we generate a turnover of 12 billion euros, 50% in exports. To us, innovation and inspiration are two sides of the same coin. We implement excellent solutions hand in hand with our partners around the globe, through trust, fairness, and openness, always committed to our values. New encounters create new opportunities. We invest approximately 9% of our turnover in research and development, in data analysis, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. Our social responsibility is a top priority. We stay committed to the business location Germany, to more than 50,000 employees, the architects of Rail 4.0. Together, we have one mission: reinventing mobility. More climate protection, more customer benefits, made in Germany. The future of mobility starts with us, the German railway industry.
Einen wunderschönen guten Tag, verehrte Damen und Herren, liebe Vertreter der Bahnindustrie. Herzlich willkommen zum VDB Dialog Forum Digital.
Dialog
Der
Forum
Verband der
Digital,
Bahnindustrie
the
freut sich
Association
auch in
of
diesem
Germany's Railway
andauernden
Industry is
Covid-19-Jahr
glad to
mit Ihnen
welcome you
gemeinsam
during
auch auf
this
Distanz
COVID-19
die
year
Zukunft der Mobilität im Rahmen der
remotely.
Preview
And we talk
2020
about the
beleuchten zu
future
können.
of the railway
Mein Name ist
industry
Monika Jones,
within the
ich bin
framework of
Wirtschaftsmoderatorin
Intertrans. My name
beim
is
Deutschen
Monika Jones. I'm
Auslandsfernsehen
an
der Deutschen
economic
Welle. Ich freue
moderator
mich,
at
Sie durch dieses
Deutsche
digitale
Welle,
Programm
and I'm
begleiten
glad
zu
to be
dürfen.
your host
Und
through
ich möchte an
this
dieser Stelle
digital
auch einen
program
kleinen
today.
Regelbuch machen,
I'd
denn
like
die
to
Veranstaltung
break
ist,
the
wie Sie
rules a
bemerkt
little bit
haben, in
because you
deutscher
might have
Sprache.
noticed that
Und
we
wir haben
are
zwei
speaking
fantastische
German here. We
Dolmetscher,
have
die dafür sorgen,
interpreters
dass
who
jeder
will
immer alles
ensure
versteht.
that
Dennoch möchte
everybody
ich jetzt
understands
nur zu Beginn
everything
ganz kurz
for
selbst auch
the
ins
entire
Englische
time, but
wechseln.
I am
Ladies
going
and
to switch
gentlemen,
into English
a very
myself
warm
now.
welcome to our VDB Dialog Forum as part of the InnoTrans Preview 2020. It's so good to have you with us, especially in these trying COVID-19 times. You know, it's not possible to meet in person these days, but thanks to modern communications technology, we're still able to look at urgent topics within the mobility sector with you and explore solutions. So thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you with us.
And starting now, I can promise everybody, including the interpreters, that I'm going to stick to German. Today's motto is Rail Revolution 4.0, picking up speed after the crisis. And I wanted to get a little bit of information during the preparation and looked at VDB Climate Report 2020 and saw that the future of mobility is not a renunciation, but a promise, which sounds very promising, but it also brings about questions. How can climate protection and growth be brought together? What is climate mobility? How could a green restart look like, and what is the role of European or global partnerships, and how can the Mobility Revolution 4.0 be achieved together? These are the topics that we want to discuss today with you and our experts. We have about 2 hours time for this, which is not too much for these complex and important topics, and that's why we do not want to lose any time and get started right away with the official greeting of our host. And I would like to welcome the President of VDB, Andreas Becker. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Good morning, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, Secretaries of State, ladies and gentlemen, Members of Parliament, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. A very warm welcome on the occasion of this German Railway Association VDB InnoTrans Dialog Forum. It's a traditional event of the railway industry in a new digital form. During the last month, we completely had to face new challenges, all of us. The very many great relationships of the German railway industry with our esteemed partners all over the world have proven to be reliable. It is said that character is forged in a crisis. Our sector has shown its character in the corona crisis. I would like to thank our business partners for their trust and the cooperation with them. The crisis also has shown us that mobility and logistics are system relevant. The plants of the railway industry still produce in a reliable way under strict health measures because rail is the backbone of economy and society. You can rely on the railway industry. It seems to be a bit abstract, but it is really dear to me because our employees work for our company, for our society and our customers. And I would like to express my warm thanks on this occasion today. There were very many impressive encounters with employees, and especially one overhead line technician impressed me. He said, if railway doesn't go anywhere anymore, nothing goes. I think it is really expressed in a very precise way. And it is now time to look forward, to think of our ambitious targets. We have to be successful in the economic restart, and this must be a restart to a climate-friendly and digital future. Climate protection and economic growth are no longer antagonists, and a climate-friendly industry, as the railway industry, can make its contribution. Often traffic gets to its limits now. Individual traffic gets to its limits. Some say we need a different form of mobility or a modern one. And since the corona pandemic, it is even more important to create trust in our passengers. So it is correct to say that we need a real mobility revolution. The railway industry is a driver of mobility revolution 4.9, like no other, digital, emission-free, safe. Railway industry can do a lot. Our mission? Reinvent mobility. Without emissions, we really push further the limits of what is feasible. The future of mobility, the motto of the InnoTrans, is perfect to express this. Our leading fair will take place in Berlin in 2021, and this is a first step in a virtual way now. Look at the InnoTrans digital preview. Our leading fair is once again setting the pace for the industry. If not here, where else could start this mobility revolution today? And I would like to talk today about 3 guidelines we have to carry on together with tempo and with courage. My first guideline would be, let us implement the mobility revolution together. In European and global partnerships, our industry puts into practice the best mobility on rail ever. Innovation made in Germany and made in Europe is a revolution in mobility. The expert philosophy of our members of the German Railway Industry Federation VDB reflects also our ethics. We stand for passion and precision, for tailor-made solution with a maximum of added value. We stand for sustainability and reliable performance during the entire life cycle. We stand for open standards and a practiced corporate social responsibility. In short, we stand for trust and a fair, sustainable partnership. This is our business model. These are our values. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is only logical that this mobility revolution has to be brought about together. We know about our responsibility here in Europe. Politics, economy, research, we all have to make our contribution. The Green Deal and the European Year of Rail 2021, this is a clear signal for the mobility revolution. Clean Europe is a clear factor of the European industry strategy based on industry and on fair competition. Germany has also started in a very strong way. This is why I'm particularly happy that our Minister of Transport and Infrastructure will send a welcoming address. We have to work together on the mobility revolution 4. Thank you very much for this cooperation. We have to accelerate the ECTS expansion. We need to have research and other factors for our master plan railway that we want to put into practice now. Minister, we don't only share this common vision of clean mobility, but also some sort of positive impatience. We want more tempo. This is certainly our common creed. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, let me now get to my second guideline. Let us put into practice the mobility revolution in a more speedy way, because time is scarce. Decarbonization of our economy cannot be delayed any longer. Traffic is responsible for a quarter of all greenhouse gases in the EU. Railway only 0.5%, so we can be a trailblazer. Climate solutions of the railway industry in Germany can pave the way to a new era of emission-free mobility. Thanks to digitization, railway could double the passengers on the same lines by 50%. Thanks to digitization, we can also save 30% of energy. Electromobility has been a success story for the last 140 years, and we carry on. We electrify new railway lines, and where there are no catenaries, we use batteries and hydrogen, which is already available in Germany. Battery-powered trains can go for at least 100 kilometers. Hydrogen trains are a success story since 2016 and part of our portfolio. The rail can be a hub for hydrogen trains and for the new hydrogen service stations and the charging infrastructure. Now we have to double our speed. The future of mobility has to start now, because the sooner we implement, the more powerful the effects for economy and climate. Our industry can deliver, and the figures speak for themselves. In Germany, between Berlin and Munich, we could double the number of passengers since we use high-speed control and could reduce travel times by 2 hours. In Spain, 6 times more passengers use the train since the commitment of a high-speed link made in Germany with almost 100% punctuality. Ladies and gentlemen, our industry is future-proof. It is a motor for our economy growth and for growth that can put impulses, because investments in railway has also a leverage effect. I am convinced, ladies and gentlemen, we have a high responsibility to put these solutions into practice now. And this brings me to my third guideline. Let us start the mobility revolution in a more courageous way, because some people think that clean mobility has to be enacted by decree. We are convinced that this can be done in a different way. Railway industry stands for more courage. We want to convince people, we want to fascinate people, because this is efficient climate protection. And Railway 4.0 can do that. Just imagine blue skies on the mega metropolis of the world, no smog, a metro station every 500 meters, no crowded trains, no waiting times. Railway 4.0 can do that because automated trams and metros made in Germany also circulate. They are often a real symbol for their city because of their creative design. Ticket can give you digital, smartphones can give you digital ticket, and you can keep the distance in Corona times. Think of high-speed trains linking the metropolis thanks to new technologies and with zero emissions. This is feasible. High-speed trains are almost 100% available thanks to digital control, which is certainly a very comfortable traveling experience. And also imagine that you do not get stuck in truck lines. The railway will bear the brunt of logistic transport as well. This is possible thanks to intermodal data platforms and automated coupling. If we offer the best, the market will follow us, and growth and climate change will also follow. Colleagues, Mobility Revolution 4.0, that's both two things, a common commitment and a fantastic mission. These three guidelines, together, tempo and courage, we will be successful. What is that in practice? We will hear that later on in 6 fascinating contributions on the panels, and I'm looking very much forward to it. Dear Mrs. Jones, in an elegant manner you will assure an orderly process. Thank you very much. And Minister, Germany's railway industry is ready to announce a new era of mobility together with you. I am very much looking forward to your address. Ladies and gentlemen, let us invent mobility anew together. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodenbeck. I'm taking with me that we shouldn't only jointly trigger and implement the Mobility Revolution 4.0, but that we should speed it up and be more courageous. Speed it up, you mentioned it yourself. This is something that you have in common with the Minister for Transport, but these are two players, but there are more players, more stakeholders involved in politics. What would you say? What is necessary? What do you want from policymakers to bring in line the vision of Mobility 4.0 and reality? Do you think it is realistic? If you look at the current crises, will clean mobility really be a priority? Thank you very much for this question. I am convinced that policymakers, business, everybody have understood that rail is part of the solutions. If we want to achieve our climate goals, the railway industry is one part that can make a significant contribution. A lot of policymakers have understood this, not just in Germany, but in Europe. A lot of policymakers openly approach us to ask for our ideas. How can we do things differently, better? How can we approach even faster? Digital Railway Germany is one example where we agreed that we want to be even faster than we originally stipulated. So many have understood that we can solve the problem together. And to answer the second part of your question, the corona pandemic has had a severe impact on many of us in our daily lives, in our work. We were very much limited and restricted in what we are doing, but the goal of CO2 reduction, the goal of achieving the climate goals hasn't disappeared. If you look at the news, you still see the impact of the bad climate policies of the past decades. So I am absolutely convinced that investing into the railway industry, into innovative solutions will bring about the goal. And the Association of the German railway industry will always remind everybody of the importance of this. Thank you very much, Mr. Rodenbeck. We're looking forward to the next speeches, and we heard that the next speech will be a word of welcome from the Minister of Transport. Let me tell you that at the Railway Summit here in Berlin in June, the minister said, for us, the railway is the most important transport mode. And we like to hear that. So we are very much looking forward to the video message from the Federal Minister of Transport and Digital Infrastructure, Andreas Scheuer.
Lieber Herr Präsident, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren.
President,
Auf der
ladies and
Schiene
gentlemen,
aus der Krise. Der Titel
picking
des
up speed
Dialogforums
after
passt
the
perfekt zur
crisis,
Politik meines
this
Hauses.
very much
Ich möchte sogar
fits
noch einen
the policy
draufsetzen.
that we
Wir finden
create
nicht
here
nur
in our
irgendwie
ministry. And I'd
aus
like to
sondern die Schiene
add,
steht
we
am
don't
Ende
just
sogar
find
stärker
a way
da
out of the
als
crisis,
zuvor.
but the railway
Die 20er
industry
Jahre
will
werden
be
das
stronger after the
Jahrzehnt
crisis
der
than
Schiene.
now.
Davon bin
The
ich überzeugt.
20s will be
Davon
the decade
wird
of
das
the railway. I'm
Klima
convinced of this,
profitieren.
and climate
Davon
will
wird der
benefit from
Personen-
it.
und der Güterverkehr profitieren und
Both
natürlich
passenger and
wird
freight
davon auch
transport
die
will
Bahnindustrie
benefit from it, and the railway industry
Sie wissen ja,
will
unser
benefit
Ziel
from
aus
this. You
dem
know,
Koalitionsvertrag
our
lautet,
goal
bis
from the coalition
2030
agreement
wollen
is
wir
that
die
until
Zahl der
2030
Bahnkunden
we
verdoppeln
want to double the
und noch
number
mehr Güter
of
von der
rail
Straße auf die
passengers
Schiene
and
verlagern.
get more goods from the road
Das werden wir
onto
nur
the rail.
mit Ihrer Hilfe schaffen.
And we can only achieve this
Wer
with
baut
your
denn die Gleise?
assistance. Who's
Wer
building the
produziert
tracks?
denn
Who's
innovative
producing
Güterwaggons? Wer
innovative
liefert
freight wagons? Who
hochgeschwindigkeitszüge,
delivers
Lokomotiven,
high-speed
Stadt-
trains,
und
locomotives,
Straßenbahnen?
the
Wer
city
schafft eine
trains
stabile
and trams?
Struktur durch
Who
Leit- und
creates the
Sicherungstechnik, durch
stable
Gleise,
structure
Weichen
with
und
command
Stationen?
and control and signaling technology,
digitalisiert und
with train
elektrifiziert,
stations? Who
automatisiert
electrifies?
das
Who
ganze System Schiene?
automates It's the
Das alles
entire
macht die
rail
Bahnindustrie, vom
system,
Mittelständler
the
bis zum Großkonzern.
railway
Wir
industry, from the
fördern
SMEs
und
to the
finanzieren.
large
Sie liefern.
companies. We
Und wir brauchen viel, sehr
demand
viel.
and request,
Denn wir
and you
haben
deliver.
Großes
And
auf der Schiene
we
vor.
have
Im Januar haben wir
big goals
die dritte
for the
Leistungs- und
railway. In January,
Finanzierungsvereinbarung
we
unterzeichnet.
had
Das ist der
the
größte
third
Finanzierungsvertrag in der
service and
Geschichte der
funding
Bahn
agreement that we
mit
signed,
86 Milliarden Euro.
86 billion euros. The money is directed at the maintenance and modernization of the railway network, of the infrastructure. We increased the equity of Deutsche Bahn, 1 billion euro per year until 2030. And private railways also benefit from this fund because DB AG is only allowed to use this for the railway infrastructure, which is open to all competitors without discrimination. It's about making the network more robust, to digitize it and to have a no-barrier policy at the train stations. But the railway sector is a lot bigger than just DB AG. We have brought everybody together in the future working group Rail that has developed its master plan, and based on this we agreed on the Railway Pact in June, the biggest and most broad-based alliance that has ever existed. We put together the Deutschlandtakt under the motto, the railway gets you everywhere more punctually and more frequently, and this is the biggest reform since 1994. We have a plan for the railway and we have a plan for the timetables. We have a new framework financing agreement that I signed in August with the railway industry, which is interesting for the industry as well. In the future, projects will be implemented faster, and at the same time, the funding agreement for the digital hub Stuttgart was signed. And with this, we have a unique digital offensive that we put into practice for the railway. As the first region in Germany, Stuttgart will receive the most digital, modern control and command systems, ETCS, the new European standard when it comes to train control systems, and digital signal boxes. New technologies also play a role in real-time train tracking, intelligent traffic management, 5G data communication, and artificial intelligence for automated driving. With all of this, we create the prerequisites for highly automated driving, and we make use of the benefits of digital railway. It's more reliable, it's more punctual, it increases energy efficiency, it reduces CO2 emissions, and it reduces operating costs. The region of Stuttgart becomes the trailblazer for modern railway transport, and Germany becomes the international yardstick for digital railway. Two more plans of our startup package, Digital Rail, are the Trans-European corridor from Scandinavia to the Mediterranean and the high-speed track from in the Cologne Rhine-Main region. With the Trans-European corridor, we want to test how digitalization can improve freight transport. And in Cologne, in the Rhine-Main region, we want to test what digitalization can do to improve high-speed transport. In the economic package, we also have a program to step up the digitization of the signal boxes. In the next 2 years, €500 million will be made available for this. And I'd like to thank the German Railway Industry Association. With the opening and standardization of interfaces, it achieves the great participation of the industry as a whole. And this is not everything that my ministry has come up with for railways. At the EU level, we closely cooperate with the other member states so that the rail can be strengthened at the international level. In September, middle September, I received my colleagues for a virtual conference, a rail summit, and we signed the Berlin Declaration. We commit ourselves to a high-performing freight transport in Europe. We want to expand, modernize, and improve railway traffic in Germany. We have some concrete measures that we agreed upon. Technical harmonization, for example, needs to be advanced. We understand that the industry cannot do this all by itself. The European Community of Nations needs to ensure the right conditions and has to promote the right instruments and provide support. And it's not only ETCS we're talking about, but also digital coupling. We want to introduce this as quickly as possible. It's unbearable that hundreds of thousands of freight wagons need to be cumbersomely connected by hand, almost like 100 years ago. In order to support the industry transformation, I try to convince my colleagues of a funding program. We also want to increase the capacity of infrastructure and terminals. We want to have more interoperability, and 740-meter train usage needs to be stepped up. In passenger transport, we want to bring together the national timetables into a European timetable and have Trans-Europe Express 2.0 or TEE 2.0 trains that we want to establish continuous service throughout Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, I can hardly wait for this, and I hope that the companies of the railway industry are preparing for this in a good way, but I'm not really concerned about this. With this strong program, we embark into the decade of the 20s, and we want to ensure that the products of the railway industry remain strong at the national and international level. I'm looking forward to implementing this together with the partners of the German Railway Industry Association. I hope you have an interesting day and a good dialogue forum. Thank you very much. This was the video message of the Federal Minister of Transport and Digital Infrastructure, Andreas Scheuer. And it's interesting to hear that the decade of the rail is about to begin. So a lot is happening in the railway industry, and we know that even though we're laymen and women, we know since the COVID-19 pandemic that everything would have stood still without the railway industry. But the railway is also important to achieve the climate goals of the Paris Agreement. The political framework conditions need to be in place, that's correct, but somebody has to look after the important technologies, the technologies to achieve an environmentally friendly and at the same time economically feasible railway system. And that's what others do, the important players, the operators, the providers, the representatives of industry. They all work to achieve the same task for the future, namely achieving clean mobility. And how they're doing this is something you probably want to know. And we are here to learn more from three representatives of industry following this clip.
With us, electromobility is right on track, and we go further. Our mission statement, zero emissions, to benefit climate protection globally and to ensure clean air locally. We are electrifying and digitalizing the infrastructure. State-of-the-art innovations are at the forefront of our strategy. The zero-emission mobility of tomorrow will be based on batteries, hybrid configurations, and electric traction, even without catenary. Our companies are already delivering 30% more energy efficiency. Automated metros, lightweight construction, new energy recovery systems, protecting the global climate, now and for future generations.
Clean, efficient, economic, and customer-friendly. All of this is the future of mobility on the railway tracks. And how this can be achieved? Well, I'd like to welcome three representatives of industry who work towards achieving these goals. I'd like to very cordially welcome Jure Mikolcic. He is the VDB Vice President Vehicles, Stadler Pankow GmbH and Stadler Railway GmbH, then Dr. Jörg Nikuta, VDB Presidency Member, Board Member of Alstom Transport Germany and Austria, and opposite of me, Dr. Anne Großmann, Managing Director of Windhof Bahn- und Anlagentechnik GmbH. I will talk about this a little bit more in detail later on. So what's going to happen now? So each of these three industry representatives will be given the possibility to pitch to us for 5 minutes how they see the future of mobility, what the projects are that they're working on and that they're initiating. And following this, we will talk a little bit. And Jure Mikolcic will begin, the Vice President of VDB Vehicles, CEO of Stadler Pankow GmbH, and member of Stadler Rail AG. And I always want to know what the background of these people people is, and he has been working in the railway industry for many years now. He was a former managing director of Knorr-Bremsen PowerTech, former president of commuter and regional trains at Siemens, and he's here now to talk on the issue of safe and clean mobility made in Germany. So, Mr. Mikalcic, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome all of you. We are living in interesting times. On the one hand, we have this big issue of the pandemic that we're all affected by. On the other hand, we have various big challenges in the global economy that also have an impact on us. It is clear today that the challenge that we are facing as national industry, as population, it will be very much affected by the transport of goods and will have an impact on the opportunities everybody has regarding their economic development and also with regard to climate. We all know that the railway is the most environmentally friendly means of transportation that exists, and we will continue, as you've heard in the speeches of the President and the following presentation. We see what the technological possibilities are that we have identified through alternative drive possibilities to continue to make a contribution to reduce CO2. I would like to refer to a new study that was published by Deutsche Bahn this week. We can see that the young generation very much supports the railway. The study showed that 64% of the 16 to 29-year-olds consider public transport as the most decisive instrument to achieve the climate turnaround here on this planet. Another important and interesting piece of information in this study is that it is estimated that using public transport will again reach the same levels as prior to the corona time, and 38% of the people questioned continue to use public transport at least once a week. At least they plan to. This is presented here. You can see the challenges of the 21st century and the possibilities that we have as the railway industry to contribute to these big cluster issues. And that's why my message is it's impossible to achieve this without us when it comes to these global challenges. At the same time, when we look at our customers, we have to see that we are living with the pandemic. I've brought you some exemplary images here. You can see safety for passengers has become a very big issue, which is presented in different ways. There are different studies. The studies cannot be compared. There's an interesting study from the Charité Hospital in Berlin where samples were taken over a period of time in the trains of Deutsche Bahn, and the medical result is that we do not have an increased risk when we travel with one of the vehicles of public transport. Nonetheless, we understand that this corona pandemic has a massive impact on the individual personal feeling of safety when it comes to the customers. The German Travel Association says that 54% of the passengers feel a lot more insecure when it comes to using this means of transportation. I believe that none of this is really necessary. We, as German or European international industry, can provide an answer here. We have short-term concepts that we can offer. For example, the no-contact opening of doors. We can offer medium-term concepts, for example, providing passengers with the possibility of electronically checking the occupancy of the vehicle before they travel and then pick a compartment where they are more separated from others. So it's up to us to provide the technical solutions. Policymakers have recognized the need, and we have the skills and competences, and this is the only way for us to really bring back this feeling of security to the passengers and increase or stabilize the passenger numbers.
Thank you very much, Jure Mikočik. And this brings us to our next speaker, Dr. Jörg Nikuta, who is, of course, member of the board of Alstom Germany and Austria, and he's also on Twitter. This is good for me, because then I can also find a little bit what two people are doing. He is a passionate follower of technology innovations and of railway innovation. He lives in Berlin, but in Vienna, something particular, something new started, a new era started. There will be, for the first time, a regular train circulating, a regular hydrogen train circulating in Austria. And he was talking about a milestone in technology development. So I'm looking forward to his presentation on the emission-free train of the future, autonomous and digital. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Do you remember, about a year ago, we all together, because also of the Fridays for Future movement, we talked about CO2 emissions. Because of the pandemic, this is no longer very present, but it does not disappear. This item, this subject is still there, meaning that we all need an environmental friendly technology for transport, and railway can contribute to this in an important way. To do so, we need a performant railway network, Rail 4.0, and Mr. Rodenbeck, the president of the German Railway Industry Association, VDB, had already said that one important factor is the use of ETCS, the European Train Control System here in Germany. The German government has made available funds for this in a speedy way and a new program so that we can get a digital railway network here in Germany. The digital railway network allows us to use more capacities, but at the same time it creates new conditions, for example, for an automated train operation, the ATO, automatic train operation. For example, driverless metros, driverless subways, we have known them for 30 years, but not in regular trains. And do not think of, at first, of saving staff costs. This is now not our objective. We want to use trains in a flexible way thanks to this technique, automatic train operation, when we need them, when we need these trains. This is part of the European initiative Shift to Rail. And in 3 years, in Lower Saxony, we want to use 3 trains of the company Anno and operate them without a driver. This is one contribution of digitization for more comfortable transports, and more comfortable transport also means less emissions. Less than 70% of railway lines in Germany are electrified. Is that a high percentage, a low percentage? We don't know. The opinions differ, but we also need mobility that is environment friendly on non-electrified lines. For example, a diesel engine is still better than 100 people using their private car, but we have now 2 techniques at hand to use, first of all, battery trains that are developed by German industry. And we at Alstom, for example, we produce at Salzgitter in Lower Saxony these battery-powered trains. And the second technology is hydrogen. Hydrogen is maybe a new subject now, but already 2 years ago, we used for the first time our Coradia Island in northern Lower Saxony in Bremerförde. And it was not a show operation, it was a normal use of this train. Everybody could buy a ticket and use this emission-free hydrogen train. And Mrs. Jones has already said that in Austria, south of Vienna, one of these 2 trains now circulates on an everyday basis, also in a mountainous region, and it proves that this technology can not only be used some years from now, we already have this technology, we have an environmentally friendly mobility on rail, and we can still expand the use of these trains so that nobody any longer has to use his or her own vehicle. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikuta.
And we have one more representative of industry, Dr. Annemarie Großmann, Managing Director of Windhof Bahn- und Anlage-Technik. She is responsible for strategy and corporate development. And what's interesting for those of you who are familiar with the industry in Germany, Windhof recently won the framework condition of Deutsche Bahn for a number of plants, lifting plants, and this was the very first time that Deutsche Bahn gave one of these orders to just one provider, and we can only say congratulations to Windhof. And now, together we start the mobility revolution. Dr. Großmann. Thank you very much. This is really urgent to me. We heard that we need a mobility revolution, but our society still talks too much about individual mobility and wants to have purchasing premiums for cars. But we need the revolution now, and this requires a rethinking in the minds of policymakers. To the federal government, to everybody in front of the screens, please help us now, because we're in the middle of the crisis now. During the second quarter, we have seen a 20% decrease of sales in freight transport. Passenger numbers in April went down by 90%, and we, the member companies of VDB, are expecting a clear reduction of export in 2020. At the same time, we want to achieve the climate change, and we all know what the climate goals from Paris are, and with the current direction we're taking, we will not be able to meet those goals. Our industry knows the answer to both of these problems. Rail is, economically speaking, unbeatable. At the same time, the costs are competitive and the delivery times are very good. It's the alternative for passengers and goods. We, the SMEs in Germany, are able and want to participate in overcoming this crisis if you let us. We provide innovation that can considerably contribute to climate protection. A lot of German SMEs are hidden champions and lead the markets. Windhof is just one example for this. Since 1889, this company has been solving the challenges of our customers when it comes to shunting and rail technologies, and you can only achieve this with very well-trained employees who introduce their knowledge into innovative solutions which we implement without red tape and fast. Windhof special vehicles, MPVs, multipurpose vehicles, support the maintenance and the construction of the railway network. With the MPV Ventus, we achieve new directions. The modular concept provides a good future-oriented solution, for example, with zero-emission drive modules, because climate protection begins with the construction and the maintenance of the railway network. The involvement of SMEs across the entire life cycle, from pre-material, for example, by recycling steel from the electronic steel mill, all the way to the tools that are used to maintain the fleet. Wherever we are involved, we consider ourselves to be problem solvers together with the customers. Made in Germany quality means that we have long-living products, a service offer that enables functioning products across the entire life cycle. With its innovative workshop equipment, Windhof ensures that the trains return back onto the track faster by using our USA, our work stand, universal work stand. The repair time for DB vehicles could be reduced by 50%. This leads to more attractiveness for the customers of the railway, and it helps to grow the industry. So yes, we already provide solutions for the revolution, but they need to be used. And in order to do this, we, policymakers and industry, need to work together. We need customers that support our innovations. Procurement policy should really want innovative zero-emission concepts. Our customers need the courage to bring about change quickly. The funding conditions need to be in place for small companies as well, but we also need the support of policymakers so that rail transport can become more attractive. Subsidy and incentive measures should focus on climate policy and climate protection, because it doesn't make sense to have to pay more for a train ticket from Berlin to Munich than for the plane. Promoting interoperability strengthens growth, for example, by supporting the fourth railway package. If we work in the same direction, we can achieve these goals, and full force, we will be able to take the railway to leave the crisis behind. Long live the revolution.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Grossmann. Please join us here again for our panel discussion. We have heard three very interesting contributions here. There was one question, leading question, meaning that we have to cooperate, meaning that we have to go together in the same direction to assure the success of rail. So it's very interesting that we have three representatives of different companies here for our discussion, and I would like to start at the very beginning by a question to all of you. If you say that we have to cooperate, are there already synergies in your cooperation, or do you think that there is more potential for synergies, or are there many differences? Mr. Miklocic. Well, I think I can talk for all of us if I say that there are many, many common points. First of all, the importance of railway traffic for us as a producer of rail vehicles. Then secondly, the reduction of CO2 emissions, which is an important subject for all of us. We all have understood that we have to do a bit more in means of communication in our industry. And I think I can also say for all of us that we depend on a stable SME structure here in German Mittelstand, because we have to cooperate with these companies, and I suppose that there are also technological synergies, even with suppliers. You all seem to agree, so I suppose that is exactly what you wanted to say, or did you want to add something, Dr. Mick? Yes, this is something that we coordinate within the German Railway Industry Association, VDB, but there are also overarching initiatives, as for example the Roundtable Rail, where many producers of railway vehicles, together with the operators here in Europe, elaborate new standards. This is the right way, to my understanding, to react in a speedy way and also to be in contact with the customer. So that means that you cooperate in a partnership, but you're also competitors. Yes, this is an important factor as well. We need competition here in Germany. We have to show at the same time that we cooperate. You said it, Mr. Nikuta. We also need a good system of suppliers, especially in the field of innovative driving systems. We need modules that can be used in different vehicles. We must not reinvent the wheel each time. We cannot pay for it. It's too costly. Let us get to some details that you have also mentioned in your presentations. Mr. Mikolcic, you said that 54%, according to a study, no, 64% of passengers have mixed feelings when they use public transport systems, or they don't use it at all. This is certainly not due to the vehicles or to the railway in general. It is certainly due to a danger or a sensed danger of the virus. How can you regain trust of your customers? Because we have to deal with this pandemic for a long time yet. Yes, I first of all believe that, as I said in my presentation, it was 64%. 64% said that railways are the backbone of transport. So it was not a negative answer. But at the end of the day, our customers, our passengers, have to have the subjective feeling that they can use railway transport in a safe manner. And this was one of the studies that I mentioned. There is no reason, no scientific evidence saying that it is dangerous to take a train. So we can offer solutions as German industry, as German railway industry, for example, via apps to get information, to bring information to the passengers about occupancy rates, for example, or digitization of railway in Germany, ECTS, higher frequencies of trains, more capacity of railway transport so that people get the impression that they're not too close together in a train, and this gives the subjective feeling of security. Okay, so technology, but also service, more offers for the passenger. This is the solution? Yes, you're absolutely right. This is also the answer to your first question. This will unite us, because sensors, for example, is something that we will all use. Dr. Rizkuta, talking about technologies, you have mentioned the hydrogen train in Austria, technology for an emission-free railway transport are already there, but they are not used, at least not yet used on track. Why is it difficult to bring these technologies to market? If you do something completely new, and that was the case with our hydrogen train 2 years ago, many people, first of all, have to be convinced that this is a good technology. And it is also some sort of technology leap to a different era, because you need the hydrogen technology, and to be really CO2 neutral, it must be hydrogen from renewable energies. This is not very simple a task, because there are some framework conditions that are difficult to fulfill, for example, the German fee on renewable energies. But for example, if a wind generator produces electricity, it is often not used and cannot be used, and it will then be simply discarded. And this is why we pay this fee to finance wind parks. If we do not throw away, so to speak, this electricity, but use it to produce green hydrogen, then we have the energy vector of the future, which is green hydrogen. And in Germany, we already can produce in Salzgitter and Lower Saxony these trains. 41 are commissioned. There are several tenders in Germany for battery-powered trains, where different German players have won this tender, so there is some movement, but a complete change, swift from one system to another, needs time and needs also support from politics to create an infrastructure for charging, for example. Okay, the infrastructure, it's a bit like the hen and the egg. Who would be the driver? Who can be a driver that technology can really be market ready? Is it you? Is it the passenger? Is it politics? I think it's, again, something that we have to do together. Industry has to offer innovative technologies. If you look at the German market, for example, it is also a question of tenders. Then we have to have a certain knowledge about different driving systems. And consulting, it's an entire portfolio, and also politics, of course, have to make a contribution, because these are innovations that one producer on its own cannot put into practice. Okay, so you need to be courageous, which is one of your guidelines as well, but you also have to have a future perspective to invest in the right framework conditions. Mrs. Grossmann, technology, this also brings us again to digitization, and many initiatives are have already been started. But it's not only a digitization of railway transport, but also of maintenance, for example. Does that also play an important role? Yes, of course. It is of utmost importance that we become more digital, and especially we, as a medium-sized enterprise, we can be one of the forerunners. Our fleets have to be modernized and digitalized. Our plants are highly specialized and can be operated by experts. Our employees, of course, are trained, but if something happens, we have to be able to support quickly. And this is, of course, easy after a digital transformation, the digital use of data, and the use of the plants, the direct link to the plants if the customer agrees. And this means that we also can offer a digitized solution of these problems, not only in the workshop, but also on rail. We all grow older. Things do not stay as they are. So these experts at some stage have to be replaced as well. What about recruiting young people? Is it assured that you have sufficient young people in the railway sector? Well, of course, in our sector, of course, we have to deal with the baby boomer effect. So there is staff is growing older, and we have to replace this staff. But we are a young and attractive industry for young people, because we have a future, but also for young people coming from university. And we, as small or middle-sized enterprise, we have a quota of 8% of trainees with young people who want to learn more, and we also promote dual education offers here in Germany, and we are very proud that we have a team of experts, an incredible team of experts, not only here in Germany, but worldwide. Okay, so these young people who join your company are open to new technologies, maybe more open than we would be, or older generations. Dr. Nikuta, you talked about autonomous vehicles, driverless trains, as for example the metro in Nuremberg, which was one of the first to use this technology. But it is really a maybe strange idea that I use a ICE train or a Trans-Europe train, the minister mentioned, knowing that there is no driver in the train. Do you think that passengers will accept that? Well, certainly, it is also a process. We have to get accustomed to this new system, and we have to grow together. This will happen. I think it is not so that there will be no driver all of a sudden. We still will have technical experts on board that can react when there is a fault or an incident on board, and then passengers will see that it is safe to use it, that it works well. In everyday railway traffic, maybe this would be surprising, but you've all used already shuttles in airports that drive without drivers, take you without drivers. It's also a question of getting used to this new technology. Okay, these shuttles, I always think of something like in a popular
muss man sich wahrscheinlich wirklich einfach nur dran gewöhnen und irgendwann ist das Normalität. Vielleicht aber nochmal zum besseren Verständnis.
Something for your own pleasure, but only to understand a little bit better what would be the added value if we don't have a driver. I think the main added value is more flexibility. What does that mean? Imagine a screen and you see that on a certain station there are many people arriving in a certain station. Usually you have a timetable, you know that every 10 minutes there will be a train arriving in the station and people get off the train. Imagine a train system saying that there are more potential passengers than I thought. I can use trains that are still parked for the moment, and I can use them and get them to the platform to transport more people. Today, with drivers who have their plans, of course, operating plans, we cannot do that. With more flexible systems, you can react to a certain demand, and this would be one of the immediate advantages for all passengers. Future of mobility. This is certainly part of it. This future of mobility is only possible thanks to innovation. We have already talked about some of these innovations, but it still makes a difference whether I use digitization, if I talk about digitization, talk about hydrogen trains, or if I really put them into practice. Mr. Mikolcic, innovation on track. How can you get more support for innovation in the railway sector? I think it is a question of impulses. Where does this new technology come from, for example? You've already said that we will have new people, new generations. How do we want to develop? We at Stadler and Engineering, we double our staff twice per year, so we have to think about what are the market demands and how can we react to this market demands. And then secondly, and this is one of the reasons why we are members of the VDB, the German Railway Industry Association, we need to develop guidelines together, and we communicate this guideline as the guidelines of our industry, saying these are possibilities of our industry and we can offer these solutions. And this is what we do. We offer, for example, as the VDB, the modernization of diesel engines. We can do that now. We can do that next year.
Das ist vom Zeitplan, Frau Dr. Großmann. Sie scheinen da
Mrs. Großmann, you seem to be a bit skeptical. Well, the question is, what do we want? Do we want to buy the less expensive products or the technological most interesting or most advanced products and the emission-free products? And this is certainly a question where we do not yet agree. And there we will have to take up speed. Otherwise we won't reach these objectives. And to do that, we need money. Yes, of course. Even progress has a price. And who will spend this money? Well, it depends on the system. If we talk about, do we talk about freight traffic, we will talk about passenger traffic, regional traffic. These are different sectors with different partners and different financing sources. When you think about regional traffic in Germany, this is something that is in the responsibility of the Länder, the regional states here in Germany, and in general it was the less expensive offer that was chosen. But if we look at the reality, we see that this does not necessarily lead to a good mode of transport. So maybe we have to rethink this, not only look at the price, but also at quality parameters. It could be an important contribution to have innovation in Germany in general. So price and performance, innovation, maybe we have to put more stress on innovation. I would be interested in one more thing, and I don't know if you have to look in a crystal ball or whether you have already some clear ideas about it. You talked about battery-powered vehicles, hydrogen-powered vehicles, then we have diesel engines, electrified lines, digitization. What will be the most promising technology, or everything at the same time? Well, I think we have to look at it from case to case with a certain know-how. There will certainly be networks where it is more favorable to use a fuel cell than a battery. So we need the know-how and then take a decision. Well, we do not have a one-size-fits-all. This is certainly not the case. We have to decide on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes even a hybrid solution with a diesel engine can be the good solution. We have to also look at the price and the performance, what we get for our money. I am convinced that battery and hydrogen will be established on the market and will depend on the network. So you think it is not a problem if you think of harmonization, for example, for a more effective railway transport? It will not be a problem if you have different driving systems. It's not a disadvantage? No. Good to know. You know that next year will be a particular year, a special year, apart from the fact that maybe we'll be having a vaccine next year during the summer and that we can get together with people here in the room. But 2021 is also the rail year.
The year of the railway.
The year of the railway. A very special year. Is it a special year for you as well? Do you already some plans in the power pipeline? Do you look forward to something particularly?
Ich persönlich Personally,
I am slightly concerned what the impact of this pandemic will be on our suppliers and how we have to adjust to this. I think it's going to be a very demanding year. I'm convinced that in Germany we are just starting to revolutionize the rail. We heard a lot about ETCS, Railway 4.0, alternative drive systems, etc. All of this is coming and will bring about huge challenges for all of us because we will not implement this at slow speed, but rather at light speed. Mr. Mikolcic spoke about using more engineers, employing more engineers, and this is what we're all faced with, a system that had worked for many decades. This and that many trains are built, this and that many trains are used. So this system will not be in a balance anymore. We will be a lot faster. We have to introduce a lot more innovations faster. This requires power, strength, and courage, and it's also a nice thing to be involved in this, and that's what we'll be seeing next year. Ms. Grossmann. For me, 2021 doesn't start with January 1st. We now have to sow the seeds, and my plea is to the operators, do not start to think about investing next year, because if you want to install a plant next year, you have to start investing now. So that's a nice closing remark. Do it together with a little bit more courage. So thank you very much to the first round of experts. Very interesting projects and very interesting technologies. I'm very much looking forward to what this will all translate into. I do know that we have more experts that we will be welcoming, and we will be talking about the future of mobility, the Rail Revolution 4.0, and battery and hydrogen. So we've heard a little bit in this direction, but it's going to go into more detail. These are interesting titles, and we will learn who will be behind these titles in a few seconds.
Innovations are only really valuable when they benefit people. We provide clean mobility to megacities throughout the world, connect transport services, and create icons. We're making rail transport more economical, more flexible, even safer, and more captivating. Our work improves the quality of people's daily lives and creates some very special moments. Digital technology allows us to push boundaries further. ETCS unites a mobile Europe at high speed. Intelligent maintenance ensures the highest level of reliability over the entire life cycle. Intermodular yet quiet logistics boost the economy.
Ja, unser zweites Panel steht oder
Now this is the second panel, and I would like to very cordially welcome Andreas Becker, VDB Vice President Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, Efi Mess GmbH for Electronic and Physical Measurement Systems, then Stefan Olinsky, Director of Sales and Business Development at Thales Group, and Dr. Elmar Zeiler, Head of Commuter, Regional and Passenger Coaches with Siemens Mobility. Thank you very much for joining us, and we would first like to listen to the speakers, who will be given 5 minutes for their pitch, for their brief introduction, and then we'll talk. The first speaker will be Andreas Becker, VDB Vice President for Small and Medium-Sized Companies, FMS, Company for Electrophysical Measuring Devices. It's a manufacturer of tailor-made devices for measuring, a medium-sized family-owned business that is active at the global level. And in early September, there was a successful recertification, ISO 9001, and congratulations to this. And Mr. Becker, we are looking forward to your presentation.
Ja, vielen Dank für die
Thank you very much
Einführung.
for this introduction.
Ich freue mich, Ihnen mich vorzustellen, sagen wir einfach mal als
I'm
Mr.
happy
Mittelstand.
to be with you as,
Ich denke,
I would say, Mr.
mit einem
Mittelstand,
Zitat zu beginnen
Mr.
an dieser
Medium-Sized
Stelle
Company.
wäre ganz hilfreich.
I think it would be good to start
Denn Helmut
with
Kohl, unser
a
ehemaliger Bundeskanzler,
quote
der vielen auch als
from
Kanzler der
Chancellor
Wiedervereinigung
Kohl,
in Deutschland
Chancellor
von
of
West und
Unification
Ost
here in
bekannt
Germany.
geworden ist, hatte einmal gesagt,
He said,
der Mittelstand
the
ist
medium-sized
in
business, the
besonderer
Mittelstand,
Weise der
in a
Inbegriff
special
für
way
Fleiß,
is the quintessence for
Leistungsbereitschaft und
motivation,
gesellschaftliche
diligence and
Verantwortung.
social
Daran möchte ich
responsibility.
anknüpfen,
And I would
denn
like to start with
es
this
ist beim Mittelstand
because
eben eine gewisse
the Mittelstand
Geisteshaltung
is also a
notwendig.
certain mindset.
Und nach diesem Zitat, denke ich,
And
möchte
this
ich
quote
hervorheben für diese
shows what I would like to
Geisteshaltung,
underline again,
dass
that
der Mittelstand
this
über
mindset means
interkulturelle
that
Kompetenz
the
verfügt.
German Mittelstand, the
Er hat die
German
Philosophie
SMEs,
der nachhaltigen
have
Zusammenarbeit.
a philosophy
Das
of
heißt,
sustainable
lebt
cooperation.
die soziale
They
Verantwortung
do
förmlich.
live
Und den
social
Mittelstand, der
responsibility.
grundsätzlich zunächst einmal
And
der
the
Mensch
German
im
Mittelstand
Vordergrund.
puts
Das zu
the
seiner
human being
Geisteshaltung.
at the center of its
Eigentum
actions.
und
This
Leitung,
is
aber
about
auch
the mindset.
Verantwortung und Risiko sind bei den mittelständischen
Ownership,
Betrieben zumeist in
responsibility,
eigener
but
Hand.
also
Man haftet
risk
quasi mit
are
seinem
at the
Privatvermögen.
center of the German
Das
Mittelstand.
garantiert
Often
kurze
you do have to be
Entscheidungswege und vor
responsible
allem
with your
schnelle
own money.
Entscheidungsprozesse,
This means
die
that
dann
German
die
Mittelstand
notwendige
offers, on the other hand,
Flexibilität
quick
gewährleisten.
processes of decision and a
Die
great deal of
Kontinuität und die
flexibility.
Langfristigkeit der
The
Geschäftspolitik
continuity
ist hier
and
gefragt.
the
Es geht nicht um ein
long-term
ständiges Hin und Her, rein oder
processes
raus aus
in
den
the
Kartoffeln,
Mittelstand
sondern
are certainly
langfristige
another
Strategien
positive factor.
sind das, was den Mittelstand
We
umtreibt.
Are characterized by
Mittelstand
long-term
ist aber auch
strategies.
gleich
The Mittelstand,
Zugkraft.
the
Was will ich
SMEs at
damit
the
sagen?
same time offer a certain
Wir
driving
sind Partner für die
factor.
Großindustrie
What does that mean? We are
weltweit.
partners for
Die KMUs
big
sind
industry
Zugkraft
worldwide.
des deutschen
The
Wirtschaftsmotors
SMEs are a
und
driving factor for
über
the German
etliche
economy.
Prozentangaben können Sie hier sehr
you
schön
can see here
verfolgen,
by certain
wo
figures
überall der Mittelstand eine Rolle spielt.
What is the role of the German SMEs?
99% hören den
99%
Mittelstand
of all
an.
German companies are part of the
58% haben die
Mittelstand.
Wertschöpfung, auf dem der
58%
deutsche Markt mit seinen mittelständischen Betrieben sehr stolz ist. und in einem Zug
of
stecken
added value
unglaublich
is
viele
created by German
mittelständische
Mittelstand,
Produkte.
and
Dazu vielleicht
in
nachher
a train,
etwas
for
mehr
example,
in der
many,
Runde.
many
Über
products
50.000
are
Mitarbeiter
created
hat
by the
der
German
Mittelstand
Mittelstand.
in der Bahnindustrie tätig. Das sind zwei Drittel,
More than
mehr als zwei
58,000
Drittel
people
aller
in
mittelständisch
German
eigentümergeführten
Mittelstand
Unternehmen und
companies
Familienbetriebe.
work for the railway industry.
Mittelstand
This
ist
is
aber
more than
auch ein
two-thirds of the
umsetzungsstarker
family-owned
Brückenbauer
companies in Germany. But we are also building
zwischen
bridges.
Kunden und
We
Lieferanten,
build bridges
zwischen
between our
Werken und
customers
Vorgesetzten,
and suppliers,
zwischen Technikern und
between
Kaufleuten.
technicians
Dieser
and
heterogene Ansatz
business
mit
people.
kleinen,
It is
großen
a
und
heterogeneous
mittleren
approach
Familienbetrieben
of these smaller or
zeigt, dass wir
medium-sized
flexibel,
enterprise,
geschickt
and it
und
shows that
mutig
we are
am
flexible,
Markt überall versuchen, uns einzubringen.
and in this flexible way we try to be
Der
present
Mittelstand
everywhere on the market.
läuft unter dem Markenzeichen
The
Made in
German
Germany.
Mittelstand
Die Familienbetriebe
has
sind
as
faktisch
its
das
slogan,
Rückgrat der
"Made
deutschen
in
Industrie,
Germany."
so wird es auch von der Politik
We are
sehr
the
häufig
backbone
formuliert.
of German industry, and also politics say
Wir
that
haben
more
eingespielte
than
Lieferketten,
often, more than none.
dazu passende
We have
Wertschöpfungsketten, höchste Produktqualität,
Created value
Langlebigkeit unserer Produkte
chain,
und
a
jahrzehntelange
creation of
Verfügbarkeit.
values, and we
Wir
are
stehen
also
also für sehr
characterized
viele
by an
Innovationen
availability over
weltweit,
decades. So we stand for innovation
heute
worldwide,
und insbesondere
today,
für die Zukunft.
and also in the future.
Jahrzehnte ist das Thema, in dem der Mittelstand plant.
We do plan by
Keine kurzfristigen
decades.
Engagements.
We don't know anything about
Letzter
short-term
Punkt
commitments.
ist noch
It is
einmal der
always
Bereich
a long-term commitment.
Der Weichenstellung.
Then finally, we also
Wenn wir den Mittelstand charakterisieren, würden wir ihn
decide
als
in what
präsent,
direction we go.
bodenständig,
We are
flexibel,
the
dynamisch,
pointsmen, so to
aber auch
speak.
mutig
We are flexible, dynamic, but also courageous.
ansagen können. Kosten- und preissensitiv, stets
We are
verhandlungsbereit.
cost and
Das
price
sind so unsere
sensitive. We are
Eigenschaften.
always ready
Und die
to negotiate.
Investitionstätigkeit ist auch nicht zu unterschätzen.
And we also do
6%
invest
treibt man
a
im
lot.
Mittelstand
6%
durchschnittlich. Ein
of
großer Aktienkonzern hat
investments
durchschnittlich um die
come
4%.
from
Das zeigt
the
die hohe
German
Verantwortung und das
Mittelstand,
Engagement des
the
Mittelstandes.
great
Soweit für
companies in
diesen Moment.
Germany,
Dankeschön.
about 4%. This
Vielen Dank,
also
Herr
shows
Becker. Und wie Sie
our
schon sagten, wir werden auf
commitment.
jeden
Thank you very much,
Fall,
Mr. Becker. And
die
as you
Rolle
already
des
said, we will
Mittelstands
certainly
noch ein
come back to the
bisschen
role of the
genauer
German
beleuchten,
Mittelstand
die Rolle
a
des
little bit
Mittelstands
later,
im Schienenverkehr.
also in the
Unser
railway
nächster
sector.
Redner ist Stefan Orlinski,
Our next speaker is
Strategic
Stefan
Account Director, Deutsche Bahn,
Orlinski, Director Sales and Business Development, Domestic and International, Thales Deutschland, also responsible for strategy. It's a very long title, but nonetheless I'd like to say something. I looked at the Thales website, and it says it's important to always be up to date and be one step ahead of your competitors, and the same applies to the qualification of employees. I thought that was interesting. Whether it is related to the next topic is something we'll learn in a second. The title of the presentation is Rail Revolution 4.0, Picking Up Speed After the Crisis, Green Mobility, Cybersecurity, Innovation. And I will be quiet now. Mr. Orlinski, floor is yours. Thank you very much. Very cordial welcome. Rail Revolution 4.0, Picking Up Speed After the Crisis is the title of this brief pitch. Unfortunately, I have to speed up a little bit, but rail plays a very important role, but it's not rail alone that can save the world. We need partners from other transport, energy, and services companies to achieve an interlocked solution, but the rail plays an important role in this big combination of everything. What is it about? Now, Rail 4.0 is a key technology for intelligent mobility. We heard that intelligent innovations contribute to climate protection. Automated regional trains or subways, we know, have a consumption 30% less energy consumption. Artificial energy goes beyond the vehicle. Smart infrastructure components signal potential damages before they actually already occurred. Thales for a long time has been investing into innovative technologies to advance this digital transformation that we're all facing and support it, particularly when it comes to the Internet of Things and connectivity, i.e. the connectivity between systems and communication between systems, big data, and the artificial intelligence to handle the big amount of data that has now become available through digitalization in an intelligent way and deduce logical aspects from this. One example from Thales is Tyrus, which uses analytical methods to maintain switches and has to be subsumed under the predictive maintenance. We use algorithms to help optimize the operation of railway. And when it comes to digitalization, our digital interlocking. Let me focus on green mobility. What is this about? Well, as we've already heard, global reduction of CO2 emissions, the railway as the most environmentally friendly means of transport is the backbone of sustainable mobility. Everybody who's involved in politics, industry, and everybody else has finally understood this. And Deutsche Bahn AG wants to get people from the road onto the tracks until 2030 and double the number of passengers. On green mobility, it's not just vehicles that are operated with hydrogen, but the introduction of digital infrastructure is one essential aspect here as well, namely increasing reliability of the infrastructure, the reduction of errors and faults in operation, but also a higher throughput on existing routes without having to build new routes. This is all being guaranteed by the digital railway program now, where the rollout of digital interlocking, the European train control system level 2 can be guaranteed. Driver advisory systems from Thales is one solution to support the locomotive driver to reduce emissions. Autonomous driving pilot projects from Thales when it comes to in Karlsruhe, and that is also in line with green mobility, the digital interlocking with ETCS. One last word on cybersecurity. It's nice and good that digitalization has brought about advantages for us, for example, customer satisfaction and more efficiency through available systems, but at the same time it also increases the risk of cyber attacks. The challenge that we're all facing, particularly the infrastructure companies and the railway operators, is to protect our critical infrastructure against the increasing risk of cyber attacks. Thankfully enough, in the railway system, we have not yet seen a larger scale attack on critical systems, but we're observing in other areas, for example, passenger information, ticket sales, and video monitoring, that cyber attacks from the outside have been occurring. When it comes to the cyber threat intelligence department, Thales looks at the threat level of each group that we're observing by monitoring their methods and the technical sophistication that they use to attack, and we publish this in the cyber threat handbook. This analysis shows that unfortunately no country, no region is free of cyber attacks. When it comes to cybersecurity, we're a leading company because we have it designed into our products with a dedicated soft and hardware, and we have dedicated specialists. We provide the key management center for railway operation, which is secure communication between infrastructure and vehicle when it comes to ETCS. And one more aspect on innovation. Innovation is always a look into the future, but I'd like to look into the past. and focus on do not forget the legacy technologies. The legacy technologies that we've installed in the field with intelligent migration concepts need to be integrated into the digital world. Under the buzzword of bridge technologies, we've set up a complete migration concept for all of our technologies, from the relay interlockings via the electronic interlockings all the way to the digital interlocking. This is what we've designed, partial renewal when it comes to relay interlockings or exchange of reporting facilities with a light force product that we have. It's a fiberglass counter that no longer needs electricity, no maintenance, and optical data transfer and broadcasting is one of the foundation here. You see, innovation is part of the DNA of Thales, and we have been among the 100 most innovative companies in the world repeatedly now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Linsky. Innovation sometimes needs a little bit of time. That's what we've just learned. Our last speaker before our panel discussion is Dr. Imre Zeiler, Head of Mobility Passenger Coaches at Siemens Mobility. And there I learned, for example, that Siemens Mobility is producing regional trains for the Lausitz region at southeast of Berlin. It is 3 elements of Mirio trains with 4.3 billion kilometers per year, and it will be introduced in autumn 2022. This is the information I found. And now we would like to listen to Dr. Zeiler concerning battery and hydrogen. Will they replace conventional diesel engine on many routes in the future? This was something I asked before. Maybe we get the answer now. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this presentation. I would like to reformulate this question and to launch an appeal. Diesel engines will be replaced in the future by vehicles with battery or with hydrogen. What is the condition to do this? We need a technology, of course. We have it. We've already heard that. There is another condition, sine qua non, and this I would like to explain now with these 2 technologies. I will start to talk about battery powertrains. Battery technology from Siemens is something that is already operating with passengers in Austria since 12 months already with the Austrian Federal Railways, ÖBB. We have already done 6,900 kilometers of mileage with battery. We can do about 80 kilometers without having to reload, a range of 80 kilometers. We learn a lot about battery technology in this context. We're very happy that this technology not only lives up to our expectations, but goes even beyond this. So we are very optimistic that this technology in the future will be very useful and we will really like it. But you can see on the left side, if you look at the life cycle costs of a battery train compared to a diesel engine, it has more advantages. This is certainly due to the life cycle cost, because the price at the moment where you purchase it has already been said, is slightly higher. But during the entire life cycle of such a train, you have many advantages. Second technology, hydrogen technology, that we have been investing in for many years already. The situation is slightly different. The life cycle costs, if you look at the left side, are comparable to those of a diesel engine, a diesel train. This is of course, also depending on the framework conditions. Sometimes it will be a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower. But we can say here again what I've already said before. Hydrogen technology is making huge leaps forward. We are not the only producer offering this technology, and we really can expect a great development with this technology. industry. And I would like to tell all our partners that if we want to use hydrogen technology, we need the infrastructure to do this. And if we talk about infrastructure, we know that a lot has to be done. Yet, we must not only look at the infrastructure, at the railway industry, but also at buses and other services that we need for such an infrastructure. But it can be used by other players as well, so that at the end of the day, we can reduce costs for hydrogen. So, in a nutshell, we at Siemens, we offer both technologies, and we are proud to do that. You see here the advantages of both technologies. These advantages depend on the framework conditions, and on this basis we are convinced that this will be the future. And I would like to give the floor back to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zeiler. And I have written down a few things in all of the presentations and have some follow-up questions. Mr. Becker, you announced in your presentation that the SMEs are the backbone of industry, particularly also in rail transport. And how many SMEs or how many SME involvement do we really have in a vehicle? It's not a surprise for many people, the fact that we as SMEs are suppliers for the entire big companies in the railway sector translates into the fact that 70% of our products are delivered and supplied to this industry. If I were to give you an example, let's take the Vectron locomotive, 50% of SME products involved in that. For a high-velocity train like Velaro or ICE, it's almost 60%, and for regional trains, it's up to 70%. So you can see the SMEs are quite important here, and at the end of the day, and this is the nice thing, this partnership is mutually beneficial, and whether it's sensors, axles, or services like the design or fire protection elements, irrespective of what it is a cooperation, and we jointly act as trailblazers to fend off against our competitors that are mostly located in Asia. Thank you. I don't know whether everybody who's following us, we have international viewers as well, hopefully. I don't know whether everybody really knows about German SMEs. The German SMEs are not just active in Germany as the backbone of German industry, including the rail industry, but German SMEs are also active internationally, and there are a lot of hidden champions among the family-owned businesses, and not everybody might know their names, but they're involved everywhere, and they're important for the respective industry. How does a global network function? How does it work for an SME during times of the pandemic? We've never had anything like this. Yes, that's something that's very dear to me as well. SMEs have to be internationally competitive, particularly when compared to the big players that are currently pushing onto the market from Asia, but competition strengthens us. We need to be competitive, and we were quite successful during the pandemic because our big end customers kept the warehouses open so that we were still able to continue to deliver. And at the end of the crisis, at the end of the first wave, we had the feeling that the timelines are shifting now, and it's difficult and not so nice when you cannot supply something with a little temperature meter. It doesn't really play that much of a role, but if you compare it to axles, for example, an axis that really takes up a lot of space also in a warehouse. So you need need to have a good concept in place, and thankfully enough, I don't know of anybody in the association that had to deal with a complete lockdown because of an infection. So I think we are relevant for the system, and it's important for the railway to remain able to supply, and with our flexible and innovative companies, we ensure this. As expressed by Mr. Becker, representative of a small, medium-sized family-owned company, what about the other players, Thales and Siemens? They're also internationally active. When it comes to innovative projects that also have a long run-up time, how were you affected by the pandemic, or were you not affected? Now let me answer. Mr. Orlinski, we have a lot of innovative projects, but let me say we also have some activities in the field of development that provide supply for current products. We have a very sophisticated project at Thales, but it doesn't start with development, it starts with production. It starts with the data preparation. It begins in the field so that infrastructure can be built, that interlockings can be built, but we're also involved in our technology centers. The developers need to achieve 100% productivity and maintain 100% productivity. How did we achieve this? We had great distancing concepts, but nobody would have really believed this. But we also worked with shift models in development so that the same groups always worked at the same place, at the same time, always with half an hour of interruption for the disinfecting of the workstations, and we were able to keep our productivity at over 95%, and we're back to 100. And we don't need to be afraid of for Siemens Mobility, right? Well, it was a big challenge for us as well, as it was for everybody. Over a very short period of time, we achieved a lot, and I think it's a good moment to really say thank you to all of the colleagues who worked a lot in the background. From one day to the other, we sent more than 1,000 people into the home office. That was a big challenge for our IT infrastructure, for everybody, but also those who stayed in the plants. Thank you to those. We were able to keep them up and running with the respective protection measures in place, and our employees were really motivated and continued to work in the field and in the plants. So at the end of the day, it worked surprisingly well. And let me just say thank you very much again to everybody who was involved in this. It was a lot of work for everybody. Now you mentioned something that's very important, a big challenge for IT. This means a lot of work, a lot of parts of the everyday work needed to be done online in the home office, so digitalization comes into play again. And it's becoming increasingly important in the railway sector as well. Mr. Orlinski, in your brief presentation, you touched upon this in very concrete terms. You touched upon cybersecurity, namely that we need to ensure that critical infrastructure is safe. Can we do this? Well, that always depends on how we are tackling this problem. Let me give you a very simple example. A number of years ago, we had an electronic interlocking between Husum and the island of Sylt, IP enabled, and we used public networks for this. At the end of the day, we did the following thing. Our cybersecurity concept, data diodes and everything, there is the analysis mechanism, etc. They were built in so that we could immediately counter attacks. There are also certain requirements how this needs to be reported to the BSI, and we were quite proud that the solution we provided was approved with the Federal Railway Authority, which isn't always a given, and it was also certified from the BSI. So you need two different certifications, and In the future, this will happen more frequently, particularly when the infrastructure or the railway as a whole needs to be safeguarded. Trains nowadays get their data via the infrastructure. It communicates with the corresponding infrastructure, and we need to be able to protect this infrastructure in a way that it is first and foremost protected, and the communication between the infrastructure and the train is protected. But it's becoming more probable, and this is my personal opinion, it's becoming more probable that this will not suffice. So my plea is we, as the railway industry in Germany, should think about establishing a cybersecurity operations center. A cyber SOC works as follows. Everybody participates in the center, and in this center, hacker attacks are detected by all of the participating companies, and countermeasures are taken so that the countermeasures are then available to all of the participating companies. So not everybody working on their own, right, not everybody individually, but jointly. And this is not a one-off thing, I can tell you that, because it works like an arms race. So we're always running behind the hackers, and we try to fill the holes that they have drilled into our protective wall. Mr. Becker, you seem to agree? Well, yes, as an SME, we're not that much in the focus of the attack waves that roll towards us, but the more interesting the product or the company is, the more you're being attacked. And we've made the positive experience that it is very important to have your own IT department, because they can then focus on this issue day in, day out. You don't need to outsource anything to a service provider that also sends invoices to you. I mean, that's another thing you always have to keep in mind when you depend on somebody. I've made the experience that you're best equipped when you do it yourself, and I see that my colleagues agree. They seem to be on the same page here. You have to be autonomous to remain independent, and so far we were able to prevent a total collapse for 75 years. I mean, we haven't had IT for 75 years, but we had the company for 75 years, and I think this is a valuable experience. Let's leave aside threats like hackers and COVID-19, and let's look with a more positive outlook into the future. It's about reducing emissions, CO2 emissions. The climate goals stipulate a 100% emission-free transport and traffic until 2050. Dr. Zahler, is that realistic? Well, starting today, this is 30 years from now, so I think it's absolutely realistic, even when you look at the life cycles that we're familiar with in the railway industry. And as I already said, we have the technology, and there's always scope for improvement, but that's true for every new technology. There are other requirements that need to be fulfilled as well. When you look at H2 in infrastructure, but 30 years, I believe, should be our incentive to achieve zero emissions. And maybe it won't even take that long. And I can think of a couple of infrastructure projects, not railway projects, but infrastructure projects that can take slightly longer to be successful. So I have to follow up on this. You mentioned the life cycles of the vehicles, and you said that this all costs money. You don't just go out and buy a battery-driven vehicle, and as a consequence you'd say, well, the diesel vehicles that still work are put somewhere on a parking space or a parking lot. I mean, it needs to be a natural process, otherwise nobody will invest. At the same time, the charging infrastructure, I mean, who has to make the first steps? What needs to be there first for the others to follow so that we can really succeed in this endeavor in 30 years? Well, it depends on the individual countries, but whether we run with using diesel fleets or use alternative drives is something that the local policy makers have to take. They are responsible for the first impulse. We provide the technology, and when it comes to batteries, we've already reached a level where we are able to provide this technology. You don't need to have any tenders for diesels anymore, so we are competitive. So we have the requirements in place to really phase out vehicles, diesel vehicles that were bought 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago don't need to be decommissioned immediately, but we can now buy new generations of new vehicles, and then the 30 years in this sector of industry are not a problem at all. Mr. Olinsky, Mr. Becker, in your areas, what are you preparing for when it comes to emission-free transport? Do you support batteries? Hybrid diesel is something we heard in the other panel. Hydrogen, does that play a role? Are you open for everything? That's a very dangerous question, if I may start, Stefan. SMEs need to be able to supply to and for everybody. We cannot determine that we just follow one product, whether it's battery or hydrogen. We need to have the appropriate and fitting components and technologies for every idea, and that's the task for us, to invest in a good, smart and courageous way, and we have to invest in the right products. And then I agree with Mr. Zeiler that we are not afraid of reaching that climate goal. Mr. Olinsky, we don't build vehicles, we support others when it comes to these technologies. I don't know, I already mentioned it, but we have solutions for energy efficient driving, which enables the locomotive operator to act in a very energy efficient way and drive in an energy efficient way along the entire route. This also implies to hybrid vehicles, but using less power is already something. The ETCS onboard unit that we provide is one contribution to achieve green mobility, because it enables everybody to energy efficient driver advisory systems to give advice to the drivers of the locomotive how to drive in an energy efficient way. On the other hand, there's the European Train Control System Level 2, which is automatic control. Then Level 3 will be automated train operation, where the system will take over entirely. I see this similar to signaling. As long as we have signaling, nothing will happen. But as soon as there's human interference, things end up becoming dangerous. And I think these signaling elements can also help to contribute to green mobility.
As you just talked about autonomous driving or autonomy in transport in general, we've already talked about autonomous trains existing at least in low numbers, maybe not everywhere. We talk a lot about this. There's another industry where this is a subject, a recurrent subject, that's cars, autonomous cars. We talk about connectivity and so on. But it's not really used, is it? Well, it's rather limited, isn't it? Is that also a danger in railway transport? Well, there's a reason why the use is so limited. It's also a question of legal responsibility. What if two autonomous cars collide on the street or on rail? What is the legal situation? And I do believe that politics really have to follow this. We, in industry, we are responsible for the availability of such vehicles that are responsible towards our environment, but the legal situation makes the people are very reluctant. Okay, so this is a comparable example. We do have the technology for a clean and efficient rail transport, or we're very close to it, but some other elements are still missing. And this is not not due to you, to the actors, to the operators, engineers, but in a different field. And you do not, you cannot influence that. But you want to react?
Legen Sie los, Herr Oliński.
Please,
Sie schon
Mr.
so tief
Oliński,
Luft
if you
holen,
want to react, please
Ich würde da
do.
gerne noch was ergänzen.
Ja.
Also der
Yes, I would like to
rechtliche Aspekt, ja, im
complement what has just been said. The
Im
legal aspect is
Schienenverkehr eher
important
dann,
in
der Zulassung
road
für die
traffic.
Schienenverkehr,
In
den wir
railway
mit
traffic,
Bundesamt
it's
für Verkehr in
more a
Deutschland,
question of
dort
authorization.
konfrontiert sind. Es ist nicht so, dass wir noch nicht autonom fahren.
We, of course,
Ja, wir fahren
can
weltweit.
drive
In den
autonomously.
Metros und
We
Commuter-Rails,
do
also
that
die
in
S-Bahn,
metros and
weltweit
commuter
schon,
railways,
automatisch und
Es gibt
city
ja auch
trains,
autonome Busse, gerade auch im asiatischen
zum
Raum.
Beispiel.
buses also in
Weltweit
Asian
natürlich schon im
countries, of
Einsatz.
course. So we
Was
have
man uns
that
vielleicht ein bisschen
worldwide.
vorwerfen kann, ist, dass wir ein bisschen spät angefangen
We
haben,
maybe
uns damit
start
zu
a little bit too
beschäftigen,
late.
aber
That could
wir
be a
beschäftigen uns
criticism
damit.
towards us,
Wir
but we deal
beschäftigen
with
uns
it.
mit,
We
DB
also
Cargo,
deal with
mit
DB
Fernverkehr,
Cargo
oder
and
DB selber, und ich erwähnte vorhin schon, die
long distance
Pilotprojekte, die wir
hauls.
als
We
Thales am
deal with
Laufen
this, and
haben,
we
bei
at
der
Thales,
SNCF
we
in
have
Frankreich
project with the
und in
SNCF in
Karlsruhe,
France
bei
and
den
in
Karlsruher
Karlsruhe
Verkehrsbetrieben.
with the Karlsruhe
wir
public
sind zwar
transport
alle
system.
leider im Moment hier in Deutschland noch in diesem
Here in
diesem
Germany,
Forschungsstadium,
unfortunately,
wo
we are
wir
still
uns
at a
auch gerne mal
state
fördern
of
lassen und solche Dinge. Aber wir müssen
research
diese
where we
PS, die wir
need
jetzt
support,
entwickelt
or
haben,
we
auf
like
die
to have
Straße
support, but
bringen
now
und
we
insbesondere
really
im
have to use
Eisenbahnbundesamt
on the
das
road
Unternehmen setzen, dass wir
the
diese Technologien
vehicles
dann
that
auch
we
noch
have,
verstehen
and
werden.
together with the
Da habe
German
ich jetzt
authorities, we
eine
have to
Mimik bei
get the
Dr. Zeiler entdeckt,
authorization
die
to
mich
do
jetzt
that.
einfach zwingt
Dr.
zu fragen, ob ich da
Zeiler,
noch eine
I
Ergänzung
suppose that
anführen möchte.
you want
Die
to
Ergänzung
add
ist, ich glaube, wir sind
something
da
according to
teilweise
your
schon im
mimics.
Forschungsvorhaben voraus
Yes,
und wir können da schon wirklich
I think
erste Betriebe
we
zeigen,
already can
beziehungsweise
use
zeigen, wo das
some
dann,
of
wo das
these
dann auch wirklich genutzt wird.
technologies
Also auch
in
hier
all
gilt, die
everyday
Technologie ist
operation.
da
We are
weit voraus und es
no
sind
longer
einfach
in
noch eine ganze
the
Reihe
research
zusätzlicher Rahmenbedingungen
state.
zu
Of course, there are certain framework
diese
conditions that we
Betriebsthemen.
have to fulfill, also
das gibt's halt dann alles voranzubringen.
certain
So, dann hätte ich
operating
jetzt gerne
systems that we
trotzdem
do
eine
not yet
Frage
have.
in die Runde mit Blick
Well,
auf das
one
Railjahr
question concerning
2021.
the rail
Soweit
year
ist es ja nicht mehr.
2021.
Und wir sind ja alle aller guter Hoffnung, dass
We
es
all
vielleicht
hope
in vielerlei
it's not that
Hinsicht
far
nicht ganz so
away,
ein
that
herausforderndes Jahr
it
sein
will
wird,
not
wie
be such a
2020 war
challenging
und ist.
year
Herr Dr. Zeiler, möchten Sie vielleicht anfangen?
as 2020.
Ja, gerne.
Dr. Zeiler, would you
Also
like to
dieses
start?
Jahr war ja wirklich eins der Herausforderungen
Yes, this was
und
one of the
mein
most
Appell
challenging
und mein
years
Blick ins neue Jahr
ever.
ist, lasst uns das neue Jahr als Chance
Looking at the
ergreifen, auch die
new
Herausforderungen als
year,
Chance.
I
Wir
would
haben
say,
gerade
let
viele
us
tolle
use
Themen
the
geredet,
opportunities that it
und wir
offers.
werden da unseren Beitrag leisten.
We
Stay
will
tuned.
certainly do our
Herr
contribution.
Oliński.
Ja.
Mr. Oliński.
Also, das Railway-Jahr 2021.
The railway year
Ich hoffe, dass ich mich
2021.
nicht unbegründet
I
auf
hope
die
that it was not
Innotrans
without
Ende April
reason
nächsten Jahres
that
freue. Da freue ich mich wirklich
I'm looking
drauf,
forward to the Innotrans
letztendlich dann
in
ja wieder
April
außerhalb der
next
Bildschirme
year.
die Leute
I really
zu
hope
treffen
that
und zu sehen.
without
Ich freue mich
screens
aber
I can
insbesondere
see and
im
meet
Jahr
people again.
2021
But I especially also hope that
über
in
die Pilotprojekte, die wir
2021
über die
we
digitale
will have
Schiene
new
Deutschland
pilot projects
dort
for
realisieren.
digital
Wir haben mittlerweile
railway
ein
transport in
Pilotprojekt
Germany.
gezeigt,
There is a pilot
dass wir
project
digitale
that has
Technik
already shown
standardisiert
that we
zur Verfügung
have
haben als
a
Industrie, die
standardized
digitalen
digital
Stellwerke.
technology,
Was die
the
Pilotprojekte
digital
für 2021
signal box or
betrifft,
interlockings
sind wir dann dabei,
concerning
die Prozesse,
the railway year
mit denen
2021.
wir
We then
miteinander umgehen, dort zu optimieren.
want to
Und wenn wir
optimize the
diese beiden Dinge
processes
zusammen
for
verknüpft
our
haben,
relations. And if we can bring these two things
und,
together,
Technologie,
process optimization
dann
and
sind
technology,
wir bereit
then
für den großen
we are
Rollout
ready
der digitalen
for
Stellwerke,
the
inklusive
great
natürlich
rollout
auch
of digital
des
signal
European
boxes,
Train Control Systems. Und darauf
especially
freue ich mich
the
und ich hoffe,
European
das
Train
wird Ende
Control
nächsten
System.
Jahres ein Riesenerfolg,
And we hope that
dass
this
wir
will
dann
be a
starten können.
great success at the
Sehr
end
schön,
of
Herr
next
Becker.
year. Thank you very much, Mr. Becker.
Endet mit Ich hoffe. Ich
My
beginne damit.
predecessor
Hoffnung
just said,
stirbt
I hope.
letztlich
I would like
zuletzt,
to
ein
start with
geflügeltes
I
Wort.
hope.
Ich kann für EFIMES
For
als Sensorhersteller
EFI,
eigentlich nur
as a
sagen, wir sind
sensor producer,
gewährleistet.
I can say
Wir
that
sind
we are
gerüstet
ready
für das, was jetzt
We are ready
Hemmungen gekriegt hat durch die Corona-Krise, was
to
ins Stocken
keep
geraten
up
ist,
and to start again
aufzuholen und
after
noch mehr
the
Kapazität
corona
und
crisis.
Ingenieurwissen bereitzustellen, um das
We want
große
to
Jahr
make available
2021 für die
even
Bahn
more
auch sicherzustellen.
engineer
Hoffnung deswegen
know
auch,
how
weil wir natürlich
to
auch
start
erwarten,
this
dass unser
railway
größter
year
Kunde, von uns
2021.
dreien zumindest,
We hope that our
auch
biggest
entsprechende
customer of
Aufträge
these three
erteilt
will
und
also
dass auch die
pass
entsprechenden
certain
Mittel nicht nur
orders and that we
investiv
will
durch die
not
Bahn,
only
sondern auch fördernd
invest
durch den Bund locker
not
gemacht
only the
werden
German
können.
railway
Denn wir
invest,
wissen,
but also
wenn
the
Gelder
German
nicht
state,
abgerufen werden,
because we know if
die
certain
bereitgestellt werden oder nicht umgesetzt werden können,
funds
weil
are
wir
not
theoretisch
used,
nicht liefern könnten, das wäre dann der
because in
Super-GAU.
theory
Also von
we
daher heißt es,
are not able
sich
to
jetzt in die
produce, that would
Startlöcher
really
begeben,
be a
wer noch nicht drin
catastrophic
ist,
situation.
und
So we
gucken,
have to
dass wir
be
die Kurve
ready,
kriegen für 21.
to
Es
be
muss
at
das
the ready
Jahr des
standard order
Wechsels
arms
werden
now,
als
because
Signal für die neue
2021 will
Klimapolitik. Und
the
ich freue mich schon
changing
riesig
year
darauf, mit
for
den
a new
Automobilisten mal
climate
in einen echten
policy,
Wettbewerb
and I'm
jetzt zu
really
geraten.
happy to
Denn
start a
wir
real
sind nun mal die
competition
grünste
with
Industrie.
people using cars,
Das ist
because
doch
we
ein
are the
wunderbares Wort, schon
most
fast das Schlusswort. Ich
the
möchte mich
greenest
ganz herzlich
industry here.
auch bei meinem zweiten Panel
Thank you.
bedanken.
Thank you
Vielen,
very much.
vielen
That was
Dank
always the
für
already the
eigentlich
last
sehr
word.
viele
Thank you very much to the
positive
panelists in the second
Ansagen
round.
auch in dieser
Very
schwierigen
many
Zeit.
positive
Und vielleicht von mir noch, was
factors
ich mitgenommen habe. Ich
in
möchte
these
vielleicht noch mal daran
difficult
erinnern,
times have
ganz
been
zu
mentioned.
Beginn hat der
Let me
VDB-Präsident Herr
remember
Rodenbeck
you that Mr.
von der
Rodenbeck at the very
Mobilitätsrevolution
beginning talked about the
4.0 natürlich
mobility
gesprochen
revolution
und
4.0,
gemeint, sie muss
and he
gemeinsam
said that
angegangen
this is
werden.
something that we
Wir
have
brauchen
to
mehr
start
Tempo
together, that we have
und
to
mehr
implement
Mut.
together. We
Ich
need
glaube, das
more
alles haben wir heute bei beiden Panels
speed and more
wiedergefunden
courage. I
und
think we have
natürlich die
found that in
technologischen
the two panel
Lösungen
discussions
auf dem
here.
Weg
And
dorthin.
then,
Und ich
of
glaube, es ist
course, we
klar
need also the
geworden,
technology
diese
solutions
Technologien und die Lösungen
on
und
that path.
Dienstleistungen
And I
muss
think
uns
that
nicht
these
bange sein. Das war
services,
das
these technologies are already ready. We do
VDB-Dialogforum
not have to be
digital im
afraid. This
Rahmen
was
der
the
diesjährigen
digital
Innotrans Preview.
VDB
Ich hoffe, auch
Dialog
digital
Forum,
hatten Sie einen
a digital
Mehrwert.
forum
Vielen Dank,
today
dass Sie
in
online
this
geblieben
Innotrans
sind. Bleiben Sie gesund und ja,
context. Thank you
vielleicht
very
in
much.
Persona dann
Keep
im
safe,
nächsten
and I
Jahr.
hope
Tschüss.
to see you again in the flesh next year.